You may remember that Tony Blair campaigned on education, education, education. And in 2001, a full 24 years ago, he promised us that 50% of people would go to higher education. Our goal of 50% of young adults progressing to higher education by 2010. An ambitious goal because we are ambitious. And in many ways, Tony Blair wasn't wrong that education would be something that shaped the future. The problem is the kind of education people were getting, and the fact that this led to what people are calling elite overproduction. As in, actually, in previous eras, it was only people who were very intelligent and also very studious who went to university, got degrees, and then went on to make up what I guess we can call a kind of managerial elite. We are not using those people to their full effect these days. And you can see now that in 2019, a full 9 years after the plan, they actually did reach that symbolic target of 50% of people going into higher education. And of course, this was higher for women because they were being selectively chosen to go into universities, because why not make it really difficult for women to find a man that they actually want to date by overeducating women above men? That makes perfect sense if you want your civilization to go on forever. Anyway, the point being, what this did is it didn't increase the number of jobs that require a degree legitimately. It didn't increase the number of jobs that require the level of expertise a degree gives you. What it did is actually expand downwards the minimum educational requirement to be able to join these jobs. And so now we have some genuinely preposterous scenarios playing out in front of us where, as the Telegraph calls it, fake graduate jobs are locking leavers out of work, because frankly their degrees are fake and BS. It's not that the actual content of the degree is not useful or something like that. If placed in its own context, it's that the degree is just not needed in the jobs market. A really good example of this is forensic science, forensic criminology, because it was popularized by all of these, forensic crime shows where you've got some very clever, charismatic person investigating a terrible murder, right? Actually, there aren't that many of those people needed. and I know this because my wife did that as a degree. As she came out of university, she says, "Oh, no one wants to hire me because there's only a few thousand of those jobs in the entire country, and yet tens of thousands of people sign up to it. And the university's like, ka-ching, we'll take your money." And so this is a real problem that we're seeing coming about. Just 1 in 5 18-year-olds left school and went straight into work, right? Now, that used to be normal for you to go into a job. And you'd go in at the bottom rung, you would work, and so for 3 or 4 years, you'd work your way up, you'd end up getting to the sort of median level, and then this would be your career. You would progress through the company. But now, according to an upcoming report by Paul Wiltshire, this is not the case. And in fact, what is happening is that the bare minimum to enter jobs which are not in any way technical or require any kind of higher education. When I was young, well, all those years ago, I just literally fell into jobs like this. Now you need a degree. Entry-level positions and traineeships once snapped up by motivated school leavers are being advertised as graduate only. Now, this is the issue with forcing or encouraging so many people to go straight from school into university. This creates the value. This reduces the value of the degree. What is the point of having a degree if you're going to do something like work at a bowling alley? I mean, this is just preposterous. Hollywood Bowls Group's hospitality graduate scheme requires a 2-2 degree in any subject. Now, that is the bare minimum. That is, you could do a degree in English literature or business management, and that's I think that's the lowest grade you can get, or the third is the lowest grade you get. But it's not a great grade, right? So anyone should be capable of getting that. But really, why to work in a bowling alley? I need a degree, do I? In any subject. The subject doesn't matter. So what they're saying is, It's not the expert. It's not the knowledge that you gain from doing the degree. It's you have been put through a kind of system, and this system transforms you into a certain kind of person. And so, oh well, we just need people to have had degrees. That seems like a reasonable request, doesn't it? It's like, no, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous, right? Pest control again. Really? Okay. All degrees will be considered for the role. It's only got £26,000 a year starting salary for pest control. It's like, that doesn't need a degree. You're spraying chemicals on bloody, wasps' nests and ant nests and stuff. You don't need a degree for this. And applicants are likely to be academically trained graduates. Why? What academic things are you doing in your pest control job when you acquire on-the-job know-how to enable them to lay down rat poison, among other things? These are not jobs that need academic training. Why would you have it? And it's what it's done is it's turned our society into the pathologically managerial society. It's like, oh right, everyone has to have been through the system, and then they get practical training doing a practical job that is completely non-academic, like being a pest controller or working a fucking bowling alley. So what is the point of this? And the point of this is just, this is the system working in the only way that it knows how. Everyone's like, oh yeah, no, you have to have a degree. Why? Well, I mean, they're not properly trained to be an unskilled pest controller that will train on the job. So this is preposterous. And of course what this does is it forces people into the university system, which itself has some real drawbacks. And one of those is that the average debt is £53,000. You go from a £53,000 debt into a job that pays 26 grand a year. When do you expect to be paying that back? How quickly, especially given the price of everything in this country these days, how quickly do you expect to be paying that back? The answer is not very quickly, right? Not very quickly at all. To be an estate agent, you get 31 grand a year, not exactly a huge amount of money, and you get a company car, and you, of course, have to have a degree. Why? Why do you need an undergraduate degree to sell houses to people? Surely you just need to be able to read about the house and be charismatic in your sales pitch. Like, a degree can't train you to be a charismatic salesman. Just FYI, by the way. That's something you have or you don't have. What about working in a shoe shop? Why? A footwear sales technician with a degree, ideally in sports science or a sport-related field. Really? Ideally, but not necessarily. And what are they getting? £13.85 an hour. This is ridiculous. So it's no wonder that the chief executive of the Taxpayers Alliance says, there is now a conveyor belt of young graduates, some with largely worthless degrees, moving into jobs and careers that would have been far better suited for if they had spent years in training and employment. And this was always the problem with the Blairite managerial revolution in Britain. Right? In fact, all of these jobs listed are basically just practical jobs that you learn with on-the-job training. And what would be the point in racking up 50 grand's worth of debt to get a degree that is not in any way related to these jobs? What would be the point? But because of the kind of person Blair was, because of the kind of country he envisaged, he decided that anything practical had to give way to everything technical. And yes, we're going to shove 50% of the young people into degrees, rack them up on student debt. Again, this creates this whole system that begins just churning away. Because remember, it was Tony Blair that brought in the student loans. Beforehand, it was grants. I was the first cohort to go to university who didn't get a loan, who didn't get a grant. I had to take a loan. And so, to be honest with you, I probably shouldn't have gone to university when I first went, because I was the sort of person who spent minimal time at school. Like, I had a great attendance rate for my GCSEs. I did all right, like a bunch of B's and a bunch of C's, because I just coasted. I just coasted through everything. And with my A-levels, I did really badly because I just basically didn't turn up. Because at that point, well, what was forcing me to turn up? Nothing. Like, my parents weren't forcing me to turn up, and I just didn't really want to do them. And then I ended up going to university, doing a degree I didn't even want to do. And it was only when I was, like, literally 40 years old that I was like, I think I'm going to get a degree in philosophy. And I actually wanted it. I actually wanted to do it, which was nothing to do with the education I'd previously taken, incidentally. And this is the problem. It's about the system creating and kind of formatting a certain kind of person so that they are prepared to not only accept the system because they need it, they need that money, but then they become trained in the way that the system works and trained to expect what the system will do to them. Unlike, some guy who's like, oh, I'm going to become an apprentice and have no debt, work hard, and have a secure place at my company. Well, suddenly I'm not really reliant on the state for anything. Suddenly I'm not beholden to the managerial system. In fact, the managerial system seems like an imposition. It seems like it's distorting society for some aim other than my own success. Why would I want to support that? Anyway, this is also another way of smuggling in hundreds of thousands of foreigners, right? So you might remember that the year ending March 2025, there were 400,000 sponsored study visas granted to applicants. So that's 10% fewer than the year before. So every year, 400,000 students are just allowed to come and live and work and study here. And then this went up to 652,000 in 2023. They are cramming our universities full of foreign students because the universities charge the foreign students double what they charge a domestic student. And so the universities love it. In fact, you can see how they deliberately make it easy. For some reason this hasn't loaded. Why isn't that loaded? Right, there we go. You can see how they make it easy for these people to come. In the Russell Group universities, Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Durham, Exeter, Leeds, Liverpool, etc., you need 3 A's at A-level, or A star and 2 A's, A and BB at Cardiff. You see those really high grades. Unless you're an overseas student 18 plus. Then you can get 3 C's. You get 3 C's. Or 1 D. 1 D. Leeds, another 1 D. Or even Queen's University Belfast, 1 E. Incredible. Absolutely incredible levels of academic excellence there. But obviously what this is, as Samantha is pointing out here, they're selling immigration. Right? This is how you can get to come and live in Britain and then just cram as many foreigners in as possible with as many worthless degrees as possible to do really menial jobs that for some reason require a degree. This is what education has actually turned into. And again, it's formatting the minds of the people here, as well as ethnic replacement, into a certain kind of existence, the kind of West-style, futuristic managerial technocracy in which people are merely wards of the state and the system itself. And to make sure that everyone gets there, remember, the grades have been massively inflated. Of course, over the COVID pandemic, it got way higher, but you can see the general creep. Oh, are our young people just getting really smart over time? Or is it that they're deliberately giving them higher grades in order to continue to fill up the system of people in order to make sure the fake jobs can be filled, in order to make sure that the students are paying huge amounts of money when they leave, and in order to make sure we can get loads and loads of foreigners in? Like, you tell me whether you think this is just because the students, they're just so much smarter than they used to be, or is it that the system is just essentially working for its own ends at this point. And so eventually the system will basically have it so that everyone goes to university, every single job needs a degree, and this will be completely normal that everyone is massively in debt when they enter the workforce.